The weight of being the one who always notices. Every day is awesome. We just have to get through it. Thank you for joining us this week and every week. Hey Reasonauts. Welcome back to Human Velocity X. My name, not important. Message always is. And before we begin, this one is dedicated to those who notice the small shifts before they become big ones, who feel the room change before anyone says a word, who've learned to read what's real even when no one else acknowledges it, not as a burden, but as a strength you're still learning how to carry. And today, the message is heavier than usual, not darker, just honest. Honest in the way your own awareness has always been honest. Before you ever found the words, today we're talking about a certain kind of person. And if you're here, this is you. The one who notices things, not because you're suspicious, not because you're anxious, not because you're dramatic. You notice because your spirit is tuned, because your awareness was shaped early, because your nervous system became fluent in a language most people never learn. But noticing comes with a weight you've carried for years without knowing how to put it down. Today we're going to explore that weight, that gift, that burden, that responsibility, and what it means to live as the one who always notices. Before we step into what's next, just pause with me for a second. Thank you. Wherever this found you, whatever moment you press play, it matters that you're here. If something in this stirred you, a thought you can't quite name, a question sitting just beneath the surface, or a moment in your life that suddenly feels a little clearer, you don't have to carry that by yourself. You can reach out, drop a comment, ask what's on your mind, or come find us on Facebook. No pressure, no expectations, just space. A place where the conversation doesn't end when the audio does, because sometimes it's not the answer that changes things, it's finally being heard. You notice what others pretend not to see. There's a moment that happens in every social setting, a moment you feel long before it becomes obvious. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't interrupt the conversation. It's the pause in someone's tone, the half-second delay before they answer, the energy leaving the room, even though the words stay polite, the smile that isn't a smile, it's a shield, the way someone's eyes slip downward right when their truth tries to escape the sentence they just spoke. Most people hear words, you hear hesitation. Most people watch faces, you watch expression break. Most people sense mood, you sense motive. You can walk into a room and feel the emotional temperature before anyone strikes a match, before the tension shows, before the shift is named, before anyone else even realizes something changed. And that sensitivity, that hyper-awareness, isn't something you picked up recently. It's not a skill you decided to learn. It's something you've carried your whole life. You don't notice too much. You notice it's real. But there's a cost to that kind of clarity, and we're just beginning to unfold it. Growing up aware before you had words, your awareness did not start in adulthood. It didn't appear suddenly after your first heartbreak or your first betrayal. It started when you were young. Before you had language for it, before you had a way to explain what you felt. You noticed which adults felt safe and which ones didn't. Before you ever learned the word boundary, you noticed tension in the silence between grown-ups when the room went still and nobody explained anything. You noticed when someone said they were fine, but their entire body said, "No, I'm not." And you felt it. Without needing proof, without needing confirmation. Children like you lived with emotional sonar, scanning, reading, adjusting, long before you understood why you needed it. You weren't quiet. You weren't shy. You weren't too sensitive. You were paying attention to a world that didn't always tell the truth. Your attention was survival. Your noticing was protection. Your awareness was the first tool you learned how to use to keep your spirit intact. And now, as an adult, that tool didn't disappear, it evolved. The world calls it intuition, but you know better. It's pattern recognition. It's emotional intelligence. It's spiritual fluency. It's the wisdom of your younger self, who never stopped watching. Knowing too much too early. Here's the truth. Most people never admit knowing early is a burden. Not because truth is heavy, but because of when it arrives. You feel storms in people before the clouds appear. You feel endings at the beginning. You sense betrayal Before the lie even forms, you feel the energy shift. Before the behavior changes. It's like watching a movie and knowing the twist. In the first 10 minutes, that's your life. You walk through relationships with an awareness that arrives before the evidence. You carry clarity. Before people are ready to confess it, you feel the truth. Before the truth reveals itself. And here's the part that's hardest to explain. You wish you didn't. Not because you don't want clarity, but because clarity without timing can feel like grief. Grief for what is coming before it happens. Grief for what you can't stop, even though you see it. Grief for truths people will deny until they have no choice but to face them, and you're there, early. So you learned to pretend, to act like you didn't notice what you clearly noticed, to stay quiet when everything in you was already connecting the dots, to give things time you already knew wouldn't change. And that pretending is a weight all its own, because carrying the truth early is one thing, carrying it silently is another. The loneliness of being the observer. You don't just notice things, you notice them first, and being first can be lonely. Not because you lack people around you, but because awareness creates distance between you and the crowd. There's a specific kind of loneliness in seeing the truth before anyone acknowledges it and feeling tension. Others step over and catching contradictions. Others call misunderstanding and recognizing patterns. Others insist aren't there, and you're standing there already knowing. And here's the ironic part. You're not loud about it. You don't announce your observations. You don't demand people listen. You don't push your insight into conversations. You don't try to prove it. You just hold it quietly, responsibly, carefully, alone. You carry clarity others aren't ready for. And people wonder why your silence is weight to it. They don't realize. Silence is what happens when your awareness is nowhere to go, no place to land, no space to be received. And this loneliness isn't punishment. It's proximity to truth. But truth, when you're the only one holding it, can feel like exile. When people tell you you're reading too much into it, this one stings. Because you've heard it your whole life. You're overthinking. You're reading too much into it. You're imagining things. You're being dramatic. You're too sensitive. And it's never said with curiosity. It's said to dismiss. And you sit there, thinking, if only you knew how much I wish I was wrong right now, because being right early doesn't feel like winning. But here's what no one sees. You've never been reading too much into it. You've been reading exactly what was there. In a language most people never learn. People call it overthinking because they can't process at your depth. People call it imagining because your clarity arrives before their denial dies. People call it sensitivity because your instincts speak before their logic wakes up. And you're already there while they're still catching up. And the part that almost feels unreal, time always catches up to what you felt on day one. The pattern shows, the truth surfaces, the behavior repeats, and suddenly it's visible. But you weren't early wrong, you were early right. And being early gets treated like being incorrect. That's the weight, not the noticing, but the disbelief from people who need the truth to be louder before they're willing to hear it. The responsibility no one acknowledges. There's something unique about people like you. Once others notice that you understand things, they come to you for clarity, for comfort, for translation, for emotional grounding. When things don't make sense, you become the friend who listens, the one who explains, the one who holds the pattern, the one who sees the whole picture, the one who steadies the moment when everyone else is spinning. And you didn't volunteer for this role. Life drafted you into it. And once people realize you can hold their storms, they stop checking. If you have storms of your own, they assume you're fine because you always find words for what they feel. They assume you're okay because you can explain what's happening. They assume you're strong because you carry things that break them. And you do, quietly. Not because you don't need support, but because you learned early that most people can't hold what you see, not yet, not fully. And responsibility without acknowledgement is a weight heavier than truth itself, and yet you carry it. You hold the room, you hold the moment, you hold what others can't name because you know someone has to. The moment you know someone is lying without proof. This is the silent burden you rarely talk about. Someone lies to you, not loudly, not dramatically, not with anything obvious, just slightly. Their tone tightens, their energy wavers, their breath stutters, their eyes drop just a fraction too long, and their sentence ends before their truth does, and your chest feels it, your ribs tighten, your breath shortens, your intuition leans forward like, there it is. You know they're lying before they know they've revealed it, but here's where it gets heavy. You can't call it out. Not without evidence, not without creating conflict, not without becoming the problem, not without being labeled suspicious, confrontational, mistrusting. So you don't, you hold it. You hold the truth in your chest while the moment moves on like nothing happened. You carry it until reality catches up, and sometimes clarity feels like a secret. You never asked to know. Sometimes you wish. Just once. You could be the one who didn't notice, the one who believed the words, the one who missed the crack in the story. But you don't. You always see it, always. And the world does not understand how heavy that is when you see someone's potential and their limits. This is one of the heaviest emotional realities for people like you. You don't just see who someone is. You see what they could be. Not someday, not vaguely, clearly. You see their talent, their goodness, their fear, their damage, their patterns, their potential, their self-sabotage, their untapped strength, their unspoken motives. You see the future versions of them, the one they're capable of becoming. And the one they're choosing to remain. And you hold both truths in the same breath. That's the weight. Because when you love someone, you don't fall in love with fantasy. You fall in love with their potential. And for a while, that feels like hope, but potential, without effort, turns into heartbreak. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that sits in your chest like an unspoken sentence. The kind you don't say out loud. Because you know, they won't hear it yet. You're not grieving who they are, you're grieving who they won't become. And that pain is real, because you saw it. You saw the path, you saw the possibility, you saw the version of them that could have existed if they chose to grow. But you also saw the limits they cling to, and seeing both sides of a person, the beauty and the barrier, is a weight only the tuned can carry. The emotional exhaustion of holding the pattern. Let's talk about a kind of tired most people never experience. It's not physical exhaustion. It's not burnout. It's not that I need a nap kind of tired. It's heavier than that. It's the weight of being the one who sees the pattern. When everyone else sees coincidence, you see the cycle someone is caught in. Long before they see the wheel turning, you see the belief driving their behavior before they admit they're afraid. You see the self-sabotage before the damage arrives, and you carry that. You hold the whole map while the people around you insist the world is flat. And that clarity, that early awareness, creates a kind of fatigue that has nothing to do with your body. It's emotional labor, invisible labor, the weight of knowing what someone is about to repeat, what someone is about to lose, what someone is about to break, even as they insist they're fine. And you're there, already seeing it. People like you don't get exhausted because too much is happening. You get exhausted because too much is obvious, too much seen, too early understood, too often repeated. This is the weight of wisdom, arriving early, and it takes a toll. Here's when you notice someone doesn't love you anymore. This is the delicate one, the one you don't tell anyone about because it doesn't look like anything at first. There's a moment, if you've lived long enough, you know it by heart, when someone's love for you changes temperature. Not all at once, not in a way you can point to. They don't say it, they don't announce it. Sometimes they don't even know it yet, but you feel it. You feel the pulling away wrapped in politeness. You feel the conversation shorten without explanation. You feel the warmth cool into something mechanical. You feel the closeness shift into routine. Most people discover the truth during the argument. You discover it in the silence before the argument, in the space where something used to live but doesn't anymore. And what hurts isn't the loss, it's the early knowing, because once you know, you can't unknow. And once the love shifts, you start grieving the relationship before it even ends. You sit with it, you feel it, you try to explain it away, but it stays. Awareness grieves early. That is the weight. And when the breakup finally happens, it doesn't hit you the same, because your tears are old. You cried them weeks ago, alone, quietly, wondering why no one else felt the change you felt instantly. Let's talk about the compassion that drains you. Here's the part nobody sees. People assume that noticing means judging, but you don't judge people. You understand them too much. You understand their wounds, you understand their fear, you understand why they hurt others. You understand the childhood that shaped them, the patterns they're trapped in, the version of themselves they keep running from. And because you understand, you carry compassion. Even when they don't deserve it. You forgive too early, you apologize too often. You give too much, you stay too long, not out of weakness, out of understanding, but understanding isn't light. It's not soft, it's not delicate, understanding is heavy. Because once you see someone's pain, it becomes harder to hold them accountable for the damage they cause. You see the reason, and it softens the consequence. And sometimes you love people, not for who they are, but for who they could have been. If they healed, and that kind of love is beautiful but draining. You carry a gentleness that costs you energy. No one else notices leaving. No one tracks it, no one replaces it. And awareness plus compassion is a weight the world rarely acknowledges. Now, when calm becomes your shield, there's something else people always misunderstand about you. Your calm is not apathy, your silence is not indifference, your steady presence is not emotional distance. Your calm is your shield. Because if you reacted, every time your awareness picked something up, every shift, every signal, every inconsistency, your life would be a storm. So you learn to stay calm. Not because nothing affects you, but because everything does, every tone, every glance, every unspoken shift, you remain steady. Because your nervous system is constantly reading the room like a second language, fluent. But here's the way. People rely on your calm without realizing it was built through years of holding emotional earthquakes with a straight face. They assume you don't feel deeply because you don't react loudly, but they don't understand how much effort it takes to hold stillness in the middle of perception. Your calm is strength, but it is also effort. And like any effort, it costs you something. Loosen your shoulders. Let your chest soften. Let your awareness know it's allowed to rest for just a moment. Because the next section is where the real weight lives. What happens when you always notice? People assume you're the stable one, but stability is expensive. It is paid for in silent emotional labor nobody else sees. And that truth, that quiet, unspoken truth, is what we're about to name. The cost of being the grounding point. You've noticed this, haven't you? When a room starts to spin, people look for you. When chaos hits, they text you first. When emotions flood, they sit beside you like you're a dock in the storm, and you hold them, not always with words, but with presence. You become the calm current that keeps everyone from drifting away, but grounding others means you rarely get to fall apart. Not fully, not freely. They call you steady, they call you wise, they call you strong, and you smile. Because that's easier than explaining how much it costs. Every steady person pays in silence. Every calm soul pays in solitude. Because while everyone finds rest in you, you're still searching for somewhere to set your own weight down. Your steadiness is sacred, but it is not free. It was built through restraint, through awareness, through holding more than you ever showed. You've spent a lifetime being everyone's place of rest without ever finding one of your own, and still you choose peace again and again. That's not weakness, that's spiritual endurance. Forgiveness for the times you ignored the warning. Let's talk about grace. The kind you owe yourself, not the kind you give away. The kind you finally keep. You remember those times when your body knew the truth, but your heart didn't want to hear it. When your gut screamed no, and your hope whispered, maybe. You remember the relationships you stayed in, the jobs you tolerated, the people you trusted, the choices you justified, the moments you talked yourself out of what you already knew. Maybe I'm just overreacting, but you weren't. You were trying to give the world one more chance to prove it wasn't cruel, and that is not weakness. That's faith in disguise. So forgive yourself, not because you got it wrong, but because you cared enough to try. You weren't ignoring your intuition. You were prioritizing love. You weren't blind. You were generous. You weren't naive. You were hopeful, and that hope, even when it hurt you, was holy. Because it came from a place that still believed in people. You can stop punishing yourself now. You've already paid for those lessons. You were learning the difference between discernment and doubt. And that's not something you can read about. It's something you live. You learn it in the moments you stayed too long, trusted too deeply, and listened just a little too late. Seeing the body as a prophet. Your body has always known the truth before the explanation, before the evidence, before the moment makes sense. It tightens. When energy shifts, it softens. When love is safe, it buzzes. When something's about to break, it chills. When danger hides behind a smile and you feel it before you can name it. Your stomach speaks before your thoughts form. Your skin listens before your ears do. Your pulse writes poetry in warning signals, subtle, precise, consistent. Your body is a prophet, not loud, not dramatic, but always right. It doesn't explain. It doesn't argue. It reveals. And every time you doubted it, every time you questioned it, talked over it, tried to reason past it, you learned again. It was right. That pulse of truth running through you is not paranoia, it's pattern recognition. It's your system connecting what it's seen before. It's something deeper, speaking in a language your body understands. Call it instinct, call it intuition, call it awareness. In motion. Awareness is not pain, it's prevention. You don't realize how many disasters your awareness prevented. Not the ones you lived through, the ones you never had to. The betrayals you never endured, the accidents you quietly avoided, the people you politely declined, without needing to explain why. The paths you didn't walk, because something in you said, not this one. And you listened. You remember the losses, the ones that hurt, the ones you had to feel all the way through, but there are others you never had to live. Moments that could have happened, paths that could have broken you, situations that never formed because you turned before the damage arrived. Your intuition has saved you more times than your mind has ever comforted you. And you don't always see it. You call them coincidences, they were interventions. You call it being careful, it was being guided subtly, consistently, quietly. Your awareness isn't a curse. It never was. It's a shield disguised as sensitivity. It's what kept you from stepping into things you were never meant to carry. That is not pain, that is protection. Listen to this. When the world calls it a burden, heaven calls it an assignment. This gift doesn't leave, not because you can't turn it off, but because it isn't optional. It's not a talent you picked up along the way. It's a responsibility you were given. You were entrusted with perception because someone had to notice what others miss. Not louder, not better, just earlier. The world needs eyes like yours, souls that sense the tremor before the quake. And what felt like isolation was never meant to separate you. It was an invitation to see deeper. Not so you could carry everyone's weight, but so you could recognize where weight shouldn't be carried at all. That's the real assignment. You don't sense danger to fear it. You sense it to redirect it. You don't read energy to avoid people. You read it to understand where to place your love, where it's received, where it grows, where it doesn't disappear. This awareness was never punishment. It was never meant to break you. It's purpose. If you spent your life noticing the things everyone else stepped over, if you felt the tension before the argument, the distance before the big buy, the lie before the proof, the storm before the cloud, if you've been told you're too sensitive, too deep, too early, too much, if you've carried clarity and silence and peace as your armor and hope as your weakness, then hear me now. You are not fragile. You are not broken. You are not overthinking. You are not imagining things. You are awake. You are a reader of patterns, a listener of frequencies, a translator of silence, a seer of the subtle. You are a reasoner, a traveler through nuance, a navigator of unseen truths, a shepherd of awareness in a world that still calls blindness comfort. You don't notice too much. You notice exactly enough. The world may never thank you for seeing what it hides, but truth itself already recognizes you. And every time you trust your awareness, you honor the wisdom you were born carrying. You are not cursed with clarity, you were chosen by it. Take a slow breath in and let it fall out of you. Feel that release in your shoulders, like something just loosened its grip. Whatever you've been holding, you're not the only one carrying it anymore. You're seen, even in the quiet. Next time on Human Velocity X, we move beneath the surface of all this awareness into something calmer, sharper, more controlled. The quiet person's advantage. Why the ones who don't rush to speak, who observe before they move, who let themselves be underestimated, are often the ones who understand the entire game before anyone else realizes it's begun. And if something in this stayed with you, if there's a thought still circling, you can find us on Facebook, just another space, if you feel like continuing the conversation. And if you want to stay in rhythm with us, subscribe, so you catch each episode as it drops each week. No pressure. Just there when you need it. Until then, hold on to this. Every day is awesome. We just have to make it through it. I'll catch you in episode 14.